Joining, this is the StarCraft 2 Community Team League Grand Final event, Gallagation.
That's right.
With me here, as always, we have our special guest with us. It is GRUBBY. Welcome, GRUBBY.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's fun to be here.
Yeah, we appreciate having you here. Taking time out of your busy schedule. We know you're busy, but we appreciate you coming and supporting these grassroots esports events like this.
I think I'll enjoy it quite a bit.
Good.
I'm looking forward to see how these guys will do.
We've got a match already set up, it looks like, so we're going to be getting into this here pretty shortly. But before we get too far, I think we've got some bios for our first player. It's going to be Miraculous Gaming versus Integrity Gaming. These obviously are going to be four of the best teams in the league so far today, and all of them have really proven themselves throughout the season so far, and it's going to be really interesting to see how it comes out, because we obviously have our favorites, but I don't think we could actually call what's going to happen here.
Not at all. I mean, we tried to last year, I feel like, and that just got blown completely out of the water. Some real big upsets last year, so I'm expecting more of the same this year. We'll have to see what happens. If you're new to SC2CTL, we are community-based. We're grassroots. We like to introduce you to the players that you're seeing, because you might not have seen them before, but you definitely will see them again. I guarantee it. So that's why we like to read bios. This morning, as Aaron mentioned, we have Integrity Gaming versus Miraculous Gaming. And for Integrity Gaming, the first player is going to be Gemini. And he started playing StarCraft at the end of the Wings of Liberty beta, and he started as a Masters player, has consistently performed, and recently drastically improving, getting really close to Grandmasters. He plays at a lot of local and New York City LANs, and he won the fifth at Cybercraft LAN. He's won Gosu Pizza and Zeke Weekly tournaments. He plays a macro style and likes to emulate popular builds with the Koreans, with the exception of PvP, where he favors aggression and mind games. He considers Hero to be one of his major influences. If you like him, you can find him at twitter.com/ggemini19 or twitch.tv/GeminiSCTV. And his opponent this morning is going to be SoulQuest. SoulQuest from Miraculous Gaming is a Grandmaster Protoss player. He frequents community-hosted events and often places top 4 in Kippy's $100 weeklies.
Great, thanks for that. And, we've been reading these throughout the season because this is the community team league, so we want to introduce these teams and players to you as much as possible. And, as we saw last season, a lot of the relatively unknown players throughout the season ended up moving on to really big things, such as a lot of players from the academy teams. One notable one was Estrella, moving up to the full root team after we casted him throughout the regular season of SC2CTL last season. But this match is ready. GRUBBY, are you ready? Because I'm ready,
man. I'm ready.
All right, let's jump on into this. And we are going to move into game number 1. It is going to be on map King Sejong Station, LE, and it is going to be fantastic. I am so excited to see this PvP to start out the day.
Now, an important point will be scored here. I'm wondering, when you lose as a team, do you get to pick the next map and the next player, or are the maps predetermined?
The rosters are predetermined. The map is loser. Actually, I think the map and roster are all predetermined.
So you've already said who's going to play next in case someone loses? Okay.
Yes, indeed. This is Pro League format as opposed to all kill. Last season we did all kill, and this season we decided to go with Pro League, so the rosters, maps, and everything are all predetermined before we jump into it. So that's been a little bit different angle for some of the teams as opposed to before, where they chose that ahead of time. But jumping on in, GRUBBY, I'm going to give you the honors.
All right, very, very cool. We've got here in the top left position for Team XLG, Gemini. And the yellow Protoss in the bottom rest. And the bottom right, it's SoulQuest.
So this is probably one of my favorite yet least favorite maps at the same exact time in the entire pool. PvP on this map, what do you think, GRUBBY?
There are a lot of places to proxy things. You can hide pylons, dark shrines, stargates, twilight councils, and fly in with oracles in places. There are almost more than you can imagine. So going for a build like a quick expansion here, you would have to do it based on a pretty good preconceived read on your opponent. I don't know to what degree these players have studied their opponent and have said, I'm going to have a very tailored approach to my opponent. Or if they're just saying, I'm going to do what works for me generally in the most amount of games. if it's the latter and they're just playing a standard style, they probably have a lot of experience whereby quick expansions don't tend to work well.
Yeah, we've really seen a lot of the Stargate proxies going through this map. We've actually seen one of the most interesting was a PVT where it was double proxy Stargate on one side and a factory on the other. So it definitely has been one of the interesting storylines on this map throughout the season, but doesn't look like anyone's going for anything all too crazy at the beginning here. A gas out of both players and gateways going down.
Yeah, and we see a very quick scout coming out here from Gemini. He has checked all the locations which are relevant proxy locations for early gateways in his own main, in his natural, and in the third. To do this, he is sacrificing economy, and he has also chosen to return home, so he's not as interested in scouting out the opponent's main base.
Looks like a little bit later, second time same gas for both players, and the difference is that Gemini does have 2 workers in each gas, and SolQuest going for the little bit. Actually, no, it is a total of 4 gas for each player now. SolQuest just adding another one to his gas very slowly. He kind of started out at 1, then went to 2 in each, and now capping out at 3.
You're right, actually. SolQuest started with 2 and 3, and you kind of get a feel for this as a Protoss, exactly how many you want in it, just to get your Cybercore a bit faster. The reason that Gemini had to slow down his Cybercore 4 seconds behind that of SolQuest and have less probes and gas is because he did that early scout. That's the price you pay for it, just to not die to proxies.
It looks like SolQuest did see the probe of Gemini heading through the middle of the map, and it was heading on a westerly path there, and so he knows that is going to be out there, so he's going to keep an eye out for that Zealot coming out, trying to catch the probe of SolQuest here. He's going to see everything in the base of Gemini.
Pretty fine timing here by SolQuest. He's throwing up Twilight Council before anything else and followed it up with a Mothership Core, but I fear that he is a bit too ambitious in trying to dissuade this probe from seeing the back of his base, but Gemini doesn't want to commit.
He did not see anything at the back of his base either, and that Mothership Core was pretty terrifying for that probe. He turned around immediately and ran right back away, but it looks like Gemini doesn't want to be scouted either. He has a probe patrolling that ramp there like a boss.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by the openings here. Usually when a player goes for Zealot, he will use it either aggressively or to try and force a scout, just running that Zealot into the opponent's base. This Korean player called Patience does this a lot, but using a Zealot purely for defense is increasingly rare, and it also slows down his Twilight Council. So I find that Gemini is a very middle of the road, trying to be safe build. We've seen it twice already, the Zealot and the Proxy Scout, and he's falling behind a bit. SolQuest went balls to the wall. He made a really quick Twilight Council, a really quick Dark Shrine, and he's got a probe on the map, but unfortunately for him, it's getting chased.
Yeah, Gemini here has been, I mean, you can tell that he's obviously very paranoid in PvP because he has scouted every square inch of the map repeatedly.
Yeah. Now, if we look at this pylon timing, this is almost always a Dark Shrine. Like, around 6 minutes, someone tries to throw up a pylon near your base. That's a Dark Shrine. Because if it was Blink, there'd be Stalkers protecting this pylon right now. So I feel like it should be very clear for Gemini that he's gonna be facing Dark Templars.
Well, and the probes did run into each other down here at the left tower, and he was able to take out that pylon. So it is going to really slow down the Dark Templars getting to the base of Gemini if he does decide to do that at all, as he doesn't have any pylons on the map.
He killed that probe with his own probe.
Yeah.
Pretty cool, because it was damaged already. And moreover, Gemini should have a 90% read on DTs initially, but when he killed that pylon there in the middle of the map, there was a Dark Templar halfway forming. I can guarantee you he saw that blur. So he's absolutely sure that he's facing Dark Templar. So he's doing this body block here. Smart from SolQuest not to say, I'm so committed right now, I'm going to walk a DT across the map, because it wasn't going to work. Instead, he's going to plan B and making a Warp Prism. What do you think about that, Aaron?
I definitely think that's probably about the best thing he could do. Is he had a plan of getting those Dark Templar out, and he wasn't able to accomplish that. So now I think he's probably going to use this Warp Prism to try and get some Dark Templar into the base of Gemini. Which, I mean, he made that huge investment in the Dark Shrine, and he got 0 out of it early. So, I mean, when a player does that, I mean, a good idea to expand here and just keep on going, as the expansion of Gemini is a little bit later. But I mean, how far does that set him back?
You know, the Dark Shrine, it's the same cost of Blink, and late Dark Shrine, late Blink both don't do that much. For example, you don't see Gemini going for a Blink bust here or anything. So if they both use it defensively and don't use their Blink and don't warp in DTs, I think they'll be pretty even. And the fact that Soul Quest expansion was earlier means it's okay. He doesn't need to be making these Dark Templars, but he is. And the scary thing for him is he flew through the Zelnaga Tower vision on the left, and he knew there was a probe there because that probe killed his probe. And now he's committing to this. Gemini, he set up a trap. He's got Blink ready. He can Blink on top of the War Prism. And he gets it. That's a huge loss for Soul Quest.
So that's pretty clutch for Soul Quest. I mean, that was kind of his money there in trying to get that out, but now he's going to hallucinate a Phoenix because he doesn't really have all that much information. I mean, if you look at the two sides of the map, Gemini has scouted just about everything, and Soul Quest really hasn't been that active on the scouting front trying to get these DTs out.
Yeah. And he just tried to make that work. He took a very obvious path, an obvious transition follow-up, flew through a tower which he knew was likely occupied by an enemy probe, and then he flew in there with 2 DTs. The good thing for him, though, he's 4 probes ahead. So even though he's behind in the unit's loss step by 750, as the game goes on, he's mining a little bit more. So he's definitely not even nearly out of it or anything.
Oh, and Gemini's going to come in here with these Blink Stalkers and try and take down one of those Immortals, but a second Immortal shows up right in time, so he's not able to get that out. Blinks back. I don't think he lost a Stalker there, but one is pretty low. But Soul Quest is going to try and chase this down.
You realize what happened there is, like you said, no Stalkers were lost, but he killed the highest energy sentry. What's that going to do to Soul Quest's scouting potential? He can't make any hallucinated sentries right now. So with Gemini choosing his tech route soon, I'm going to assume it's going to be Charge or Colossi, it will not be scouted by Gemini.
Yeah, Soul Quest now has Colossi is going to be forthcoming here as the robotics facility is going down. But, you know, like you said, he took out that sentry. The force fields aren't going to be terribly useful here with Blink, so pretty much all that energy would be used for is hallucinations, right?
Yeah. I mean, you want to hallucinate basically every minute or so, or every half minute in PvP, just to see what tech route is the opponent going. Because Soul Quest right now, he's going for Colossi. Colossi is basically the best unit to go for in PvP, but it does get countered by Tempest. So you want to know, is the opponent going Colossi? Are we on mirrored strategy choices? Or are we making different compositions? Gemini is now going for the Templar Archives route and Charge and +2, which means that if he's facing Colossi, which he is, and does he know that? He does not know that. This situation, it means that the Charge Archon guy, in this case Gemini, should be trying to either 1. Out-expand, 2. Hit a timing with War Prism, Charge, Archons and Immortals before there's too many Colossi, or 3. Tech to Tempests. But you can only start one of those 3 choices once you know, and that is exactly this moment. He sees the base, so let's see what he's going to do, Wingnut.
I mean, being in that position, you kind of, don't you feel sort of obligated to go to Tempest, given that the Colossus are out and the pretty much everything you have is going to be pretty susceptible to those lasers?
Yeah. Usually you are. Usually you are, because let's say you're going to attack. You're going to move towards the opponent. If the Colossus guy sees it, he can really fortify his positions and try to make sure that he's not dying to it. Moreover, the bust method, attacking straight on as the Archon guy, usually only works if you were economically ahead. But he was economically behind, even though he lost the 2. He killed the War Prism with the 2 DTs. He had fewer probes. He has a slower third. So for Gemini to attack and win now seems exceedingly unlikely.
Well, Gemini really has sort of a sixth sense here. I mean, he's been right on the ball scouting. Oh, and the Mothership Core is going to go down too. He's been right on the ball with scouting everything that Soul Quest is doing. I don't think that anything has really been a surprise to him in this game. You know, going down right as the third base is about half done, now putting down his own third, while Soul Quest is pretty much completely in the dark still.
Yeah.
He does have a Phoenix going
That's the funny thing, because sometimes I struggle in PvP trying to be safe and on the ball, as Gemini is doing, and then I say to myself, I have to play a bit more stupid, and then it works better. Yeah. Sometimes it works terribly, but sometimes better. And I'm not saying that either is playing stupid, for sure not. Like, I think they're both playing very sensible. But Soul Quest is pretty blind, like you said. Well, he has seen that there's a third coming.
It's a very conservative PvP. I mean, Gemini has been pushing here and poking here with a handful of Blink Stalkers, but not any real commitment. This looks like the first real committed push he's going to make, because he's got his entire army here that's looking pretty beefy. But Soul Quest mostly been just kind of hanging back, just kind of getting what he wants. He's got just about every tech choice possible. So except for Stargate, so he can pretty much go into just about anything. But now Gemini is getting situated here, and SolQuest still doesn't know anything about it. He has no idea that this force is outside of his base.
Yeah, maybe the absence okay, I think he knows now. He just scouted the third. It's not being saturated by probes, so he knows there was a probe stop. He wasn't there, nor was it at the natural. I think he knows. I think he did a very good job this game making his army composition. He's got Archons out, he's got Colossi out, and he's putting himself defensively. There's going to be the attempt of a bust now by Gemini, but I fear that half of his army will be attacking the Nexus, and he'll be poked in the side by SolQuest. This is looking like a really good position for SolQuest here.
Yeah, those Colossus are coming down and doing quite a bit of damage. There are a number of hallucinated Archons there, and those are soaking up quite a bit of the damage, honestly, from those Colossus. It looks like Gemini is actually going to get out of here relatively unscathed, but now he's going to go back. He does have the Immortals in the Warp Prism. They're trying to put them down beside the Colossus to get those hits in.
This is a terrible position for Gemini. He lost his Mothership Core. He's going through a Time Warp. His units were attacking an assimilator. He's trying to drop on top of it. This is a good strategy, but it's when you're ahead in units, and it's when you hit many minutes earlier. The Warp Prism drop technique against Colossi, it doesn't work anymore at this time. An ill-advised attack, and he lost pretty much everything for the cost of one Nexus. He killed one Nexus.
I think SolQuest had quite a lot of Zealots there, but I mean, really the Immortals were the money there. The Zealots kind of tanking up all the damage, and the Colossus. I mean, honestly, SolQuest was actually behind in upgrades in that engagement too, even though it didn't look like it at all.
Yeah, I mean, he was +1 and Gemini was +2, but which unit is the best with attack upgrades in PvP? That's the Colossus. And that's what SolQuest had 4 of, and Gemini none.
So now after that engagement, would you say that SolQuest has definitely taken the lead here now that he has his third base? He's reestablishing his third base, but Gemini's isn't really on the move yet. There is a Warp Prism here that's kind of scouting the move out here of SolQuest.
Yeah, but look at that production tab. SolQuest was still making probes. Not needed. Like, he took such a decisive victory. It seems like an insurmountable lead and an insurmountable deficit for Gemini.
I mean, now looking at the army of Gemini,
he has a smaller army, a worse army composition. Yeah. What do you think?
He just doesn't have much left here. 3 Archons, 2 Immortals, and a couple of Zealots is not going to be able to hold off this force of 5 Colossus, 5 Immortals, Mothership Core, several Archons, the rest doesn't even matter.
Yeah. I mean, he should be trying to base straight, because it looks better losing like that than in a frontal fight. Because this isn't going to work, unfortunately. Nice play by SolQuest. Did the best army composition and played it very defensively.
And that's going to be the GG. So, I mean, looking back on that, now we bring on Gallagation back in. Welcome. Looking back on that, I really felt like Gemini just kind of had the upper hand throughout most of that game, and that's the one thing in PvP, and honestly why PvP stresses me out more than any other matchup, is that it really all just comes down to the engagement and composition. And I'm sure you will correct me, but I don't feel like Gemini's composition was all that terrible. I just felt like that was an awful engagement.
Well, I feel like there are many different kinds of advantages. There's economy, composition, position, and army size, and upgrades, right? Gemini had upgrades, and mainly that. He mainly had upgrades. He had the worst army composition, he had the same army size, he had the worst position, and he had the worst economy because he quit probes. So the only thing he had was +2 upgrade. But considering his army was of lower value and he had the time pressure because he was mining less, it was almost like a loss already even before the fight started. Because when you have Zealot, Archon, Immortal, there is a tipping point. It becomes obsolete, the army. If you don't add Colossus, it becomes obsolete. It's the best unit, like cost for value. Colossus is the guy on the field in PvP. As long as he doesn't get hard countered by either an insane flank, like Warp Prism Immortal drop, or Tempest, or he's facing a vastly superior force, the Colossus will win. And SolQuest knows that. Most Protoss knows that. So he said, I'll get my Colossus. I'm not going to go gung-ho double Robo-Colossi because I've already got more than the opponent. It's okay. Now I just need to make sure I've got a solid wall of Zealots Archons in front of it. I get my third. Oh, I'm not getting attacked yet? Sure, let's saturate the third. And then when he did get attacked, it was an easy hold for him, honestly, because he chose the position. He attacked Gemini in the flank, and for Gemini, for all the scouting that he did, I think he over-focused on his Blink microcontrol. It was 6 Stalkers. He did some things with it, but he was many minutes late with attacking. He was many minutes late with his +2 attack upgrade. And he also overproduced probes. If a 2-base attack was what he was going to do. At 54 probes, you're supposed to have like 46 when you don't saturate your third. So they both knew the gist of what they were doing. SolQuest just mastered the PvP more, and I feel like there was a 0 random factor in that game. I feel like they both had a lot of information. They both made the right moves. Only SolQuest was just the better player.
Do either of you guys feel like, with as passive as SolQuest was being, that there was any room or space for Gemini to go Tempest?
Yeah, I think. Well, I think there was, because not much scouting from SolQuest. He's rounding out his own composition, very stably standard. In one place, he's not doing a lot of different things at the same time. So imagine if there was like some High Templar drop, take out, feedback the Mothership Core, then Zealot warp in the main base of SolQuest, then a bust on the third, kill it, recall out, don't commit, and at the same time building up the Tempest count. And as soon as he has that, he can start to take fights against those Colossi. If he starts the Stargate on time.
Yeah, I feel like he had the aggression part right. I felt like he was continuing to move in, but he just wasn't getting enough done with those movements. Even at one point, he tried to do a Zealot run by in the natural base, and there just wasn't a whole lot done. It was shut down by SolQuest very quickly, and that didn't really allow him the space, or I don't think he felt like he had the space that he could get into those Tempest.
Before we jump on into the next game here, our next opponent